Okay, so we're back here in our scene, and what I've done is I've imported some flowers that I'm going to use for this growth. And these are some things, pre-made animated things that I have from various other projects. They've got some pretty simple deformer shapes on them, you know, mixtures of bend deformers and lattices and things. And we're going to use these as our instances to replace the cubes on our log. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move them over to the side here. You can see that they're visually away from our cube here, or our log, so we can see what we're doing. We're going to replace this motion with all these flowers. So if we go into our Tyflow editor, you can access it from the viewport here, which is really, really handy. I'm going to go into our shape. So I have the flowers in their own layer there. They're just hidden. You can see if I toggle them on and off there. So back in my shape node here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all my flowers. I'm going to remove the cube that's in there. I'm going to add selected. So that's going to take all of the things that I have selected in the scene, and it's just going to populate them onto that list. So as you can see here, the flowers immediately populate on. Our rotation's working. Everything seems like it's in the right place. But we have to do a couple of things to make sure that this works. So you can see that the Tyflow handles 10,000 of these instances really well, and the playback speed is pretty good. So let's just take it down for a minute. Let's go 200 just so we can kind of see exactly what's happening, because you can easily get lost when you got this many instances to seeing what's actually happening. So I'm going to go back to my shape, and I'm going to select, I'm going to create a scale here. So it's going to overwrite the scale of the shape. I'm going to drop it below shape. And as you can see here, our flowers weren't scaled to 0 like our cubes were. So I'm going to scale that down. And we can see it just here if we display it as dots. Those guys are going to grow up from that scale 0 like the cubes did now, and they're going to grow to the scale in event number 2, which is probably a bit too high right now, which is at 250. So if I pull down, I'm going to change that 250 to something like 70, and that feels like a bit of a more manageable scale for this. And as you can see, they're growing up over time, which is great. It's not perfect, but it works. And you can see from our flowers here, there's actually some additional animation that's not being transferred. So what we have to do is we have to go back to our shape node. So I'm going to move my shape node from event number 1 to event number 2, because it actually really doesn't need to be in event number 1. It only just needs to be in number 2. And I'm going to go up and I'm going to select all of my flowers like that. And then you can just shift select them. And then I'm going to pull down to the animation tab, and I'm just going to click animated geometry. And what that's going to do is that is going to, you can see it's updating here in the bottom left. That's going to take all the animated bits that I've got created on my initial sprites, and it's going to apply that to the particles, which is a bit more intensive in terms of computation. But you'll be able to see that some of the rotations, some of the bend deformers are beginning to happen. But you can see here that they're kind of beginning to loop, like they're glitching a bit. And the reason is that it defaults here where it says start frame, end frame. It defaults on the end frame of 30. And that's not what we want. We actually, some of my animations from the flowers go a little longer than that. So what we want to do is just change that. So you can see that one in the foreground there is really beginning to kind of glitch. So here's my keyframes on my flowers, and as you can see, they go all the way up to like 90 at some point. That's how long some of them are. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this end frame here to something like 80. Let's see if that works. And I'm going to turn off that loop function because we don't want them to loop at all. So if I just play through it now, I'm just going to cache this up. So nice and fast on the cache here. when we get to 100 here, you'll be able to see that when we scrub through it, that some of these animations, these kind of just quick lattice and bend animations, are really beginning to make a difference here. So they're feeling a lot more organic, and they're kind of bending right into place and deforming right into place. That last guy just popping up there, very nice. Okay. So as you can see, the playback when you've got thousands of particles or hundreds in this case with animated geometry is a bit slow. So I'm going to actually just turn off that shape node for a sec and create a new shape node, which is just going to dummy as our particles for now. I'm going to make it a cone, and the reason I'm going to make it a cone is that you're able to see the orientation of the cone, where you can't really see the orientation of the cube very well, but you can see where the cone is pointing upward to. And that's going to help us with this next part, which is making not only the scale feel organic, but also making the rotation feel organic. What I'm going to do now is go into Tyflow and create a rotation node. So I'm just going to take a rotation node, and I'm going to put a rotation node into the second event here, and you can see that that's on surface align. I'm going to put a rotation node into the first event here too. So in the same way that we use the interpolation to move between the scale from event 1 and event 2, we're going to do that with the rotation. So what I'm going to do also is I'm just going to copy and paste the shape node from event 2 temporarily into event 1 here, so we can just see, we get an indication of what is taking place with that rotation. You can see here that if I click off the rotation, everything is facing up. If I click on, then everything is just randomly rotated. So I'm going to go back to my rotation orientation, and I'm going to pull down to align to surface. Then within there, I can then pick the log, and it's going to align everything to the surface of the log. Great, that's what we need. But if I go up here and I try to overwrite this, what I want to do is I want to overwrite it on the y-axis here to 90 degrees. So it's going to feel like it's fallen on the log, and this interpolation between event 1 and event 2 is going to go from 90 degrees back to 0 degrees, which is effectively our normal vector. You can see here that as the box grows, it's going to click those rotations into alignment, much like it did with the scale when we started off. And the way to fix that, or the way to make that feel a bit more organic, is to go to our interpolation again. We're going to set that timing to continuous, like we did on the scale first, and then we're going to go down to this interpolation and set it to curve implementation. So interpolation. So we have a curve here that's going to gradually rotate these up over 30 frames, and you can see here that as it goes from brown to green, it's beginning to kind of create this sense of rotation. So with this curve, I'm actually going to create a bit more, just a bit more character with this animation. It's going to spring a bit more if I do this kind of inverted curve here. So you can see they just really flip into orientation really nicely there. That just gives it a bit of life. And if we scale back up to 250, you can see what that's gonna do to our flowers here. This is just for a visual aid here. So changing that curve duration then to 60 frames gives us a bit more ease on that rotation. It's a bit more relaxed. It's not as poppy, and you can really art direct this on the fly and have it as long or as short as you want. But I think this is beginning to look pretty good now. So if I go back to the shape node here, I'm going to rename this and just call it dummy shape, because this is just our dumb shape, and I'm going to rename this to our master shape. So that's our flowers. So if I turn our master shape on, it's going to calculate that, and you'll be able to see the flowers then. I'm going to take that back down to the 70. It was looking good around 70. And those are now going to rotate into place, and they're going to animate, and they're going to scale. So that's kind of like 3 really handy things that are going to trick the eye to make it feel like it's kind of grown out of nothing. And if we play it all the way through here, we can see that all of those things are beginning to work really well. So that's great.